look at the Oklahoma immigrants, leaving the Dust Bowl, the Oxbow incident, the Little Foxes, How Green Was My Valley, Casablanca. The 40s is just so rich. I get defensive of them because I had someone come up to me once and said, oh, well, I can't even think of a good movie from the 1940s, Why are we bothering with a history class? I was like, are you kidding me? And I just started, listing off all these great films. It is such a rich period. We, unfortunately, are going to be concentrating, though, more on the war in this class, where film is going to serve another purpose entirely. Ladies and gentlemen. For the most part, it has been a source of escapist fare. It's proven itself as a business. Yes, people will return to the theaters, on a weekly basis to see what's being put out. But now, for the first time, film is going to take on a much more important role, shall we say, or certainly a different role from the one that it has had. I'm going to throw out a word which can have two connotations, a more benign one and a much more darker side to it, and that is the word propaganda, ladies and gentlemen. Propaganda, in its basic definition, it is a form of communication that is aimed at influencing the attitude of a community towards some cause or position so as to benefit oneself or one's group. Okay, this is in its benign sense. Propaganda, in its original sense, is very neutral. It could refer to uses, for like public health recommendations, people to report crime, mind the gap when you're looking at the subways in England. This is a form of propaganda, if you will. It is educating the public and telling them to take care of themselves. This is very benign propaganda. This is all propaganda in our best interest, if you will. But of course, in a time of war, propaganda can be used to manipulate a populace's attitudes and sentiments. You can create an enemy, and your propaganda can start spewing out things that are biased in favor of your side and against the other side. And of course, obviously in a war, this is where propaganda is really going to serve its purpose. How do we make ourselves look like we're in the right and that we have the moral fortitude behind us to win this war when the other side is doing the same thing with their people, basically. You probably know Joseph Goebbels was the minister of propaganda for Adolf Hitler. He had a quote, "If you tell a big enough lie and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it." Or, as it was paraphrased more recently by George W. Bush, "See, in my line of work, you gotta keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda." Whoa! Mission accomplished, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show you probably the most blatant piece of propaganda that came out of the war. Blatant, I would say, because it's for the other side. Let's see, when we were in the 30s, we saw Scarface. One of the other choices that I had for you was to turn you on to some Frank Capra films. But I figure a lot of people know Frank Capra. I think It's a Wonderful Life. Regarded by the AFI as the most inspirational American movie. There was also, was that Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It Happened One Night. All of these films have a sense of hope to them. And that was what Capra was best known for. People used to say that his movies were Capricorn, because they were too corny. Capra-esque is a much better use of the adjective. They were films that, were inspiring and giving hope. And this was certainly needed by the country, especially during the Great Depression of the 1930s. But even Capra himself, when the war would come about, would find himself enlisting in the army and serving out the duration of the war making propaganda films. There are a series of 10 of them. I can't recall if we have them in our library. But the series is called Why We Fight. And the very first 2 minutes of the very first episode of it, it was originally meant as a training film for American recruits, and then eventually it was shown to the American public. It's basically telling people why we're involved in this war. And in the first 2 minutes, you have a quote from Confucius, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, while you have Christmas music playing in the background. And you're seeing images of like the Declaration of Independence, and it's like, oh my God, the whole melting pot of America is conveyed here, and it's like, this is what we're fighting for for all of these things. It's a real trip, ladies and gentlemen. Check it out if you're at all interested. So we're guilty of it on our side as well. But I'm going to give you a little taste now of The Triumph of the Will. I don't know if you've heard of this film. It is both a documentary as well as a propaganda film. It was made by the female German filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl. It is a chronicle of the Nazi Party Congress that was held in Nuremberg in 1934. That is 5 years prior to the outbreak of World War II. The film is personally commissioned by Adolf Hitler. It is meant to promote the theme of Germany's return to the world stage as a great power, with Hitler as its leader. It has a cast of thousands, of course, along with the principal players. You've got Hitler, you've got Himmler, you've got Goebbels, you've got Goering, you've got all the other top party officials, Hess included. This film, of course, it kind of has the same problem that Birth of a Nation does. They are both examples of incredible filmmaking, of filmmakers going above and beyond what others were doing at that time, yet at the same time, they are tarnished by the content of their films. Griffith certainly by saying that the KKK are heroes, and Leni Riefenstahl, of course, for, betting on the wrong horse. Mind you, World War II ended differently. I mean, Triumph of the Will probably would have been the film that every student sees when they grow up. A little bit about herself. She was born in 1902. She started her artistic life as a dancer and an actress before moving into filmmaking. She would gain a tremendous international acclaim for The Triumph of the Will, especially for her next film, which was Olympia, a documentary on the 1936 Olympic Games that were held in Berlin. Yes, there are affiliations with the Nazi Party because, you've got swastikas pretty much appearing in every shot, but at the same token, she really is focusing more on the athletes themselves. And once again, experimenting with what can be done with the camera. So there's like a diving sequence where suddenly divers will be going backwards, back onto the diving board. So she's having fun with it. It's a beautiful film. Again, you have to separate the film from its political background. She herself, of course, at the end of the war, she was arrested, she was brought to trial. She, of course, protested. She said she didn't know anything about all the horrors that were happening in the camps, but nonetheless, she was an intricate part of the propaganda machine of the Third Reich. She would be condemned by the international community. She would not make another movie for over 50 years. In the 1970s, she would start to publish books of her still photography. She focused on these indigenous tribes in Africa, especially the Nuba tribe that is in Sudan. And she was also very much interested in oceanography. And she was a diver, a scuba diver. And her very last film, this I think is so amazing. The last film she was directed was called Underwater Impression. It was her attempt to try to preserve coral reefs. She shot it at the age of 100.
Whoa. Wow.
Hello! Wow. These Germans, yeah? They may have lost, but they have some fortitude. she would pass away the following year at 101. What a life. What a life. Yeah, Liz.
What was the title of it? Underwater?
Underwater Impressions. Actually, it's singular, Impression. Despite her affiliations with the Nazi Party, when she passed away, she was heralded in a lot of the obituaries that appeared. Associated Press described her as an acclaimed pioneer of film and photographic techniques, while the obituary from the BBC noted that her documentaries were hailed as groundbreaking filmmaking, pioneering techniques involving cranes, tracking rails, and many cameras working at the same time. So, I dare say probably one of the earliest uses of multiple camera shoots, especially for the Olympics and for the Triumph of the Will, you're going to see. You have this huge parade and there are cameras just like stationed everywhere along it. She would direct only 8 films in her career, and it is the film that we're seeing a small clip of from today that she is best known. The Economist, another British publication, they wrote that The Triumph of the Will sealed her reputation as the greatest female filmmaker of the 20th century. Wow. Personally, I know. Personally, I think that belongs to Lois Weber, whose Hypocrites we saw earlier. That's just me. Anyway, I'm going to show you, like I said, just the opening of this film. I don't want anyone to, run out of here and join the party. So we're just going to get some oldies.
Yellow Hydra and all that.
That's, Hialeahs will always be accepted. While we're waiting for this to warm up, I guess we have one approaching deadline, and that is to change your status from credit to audit for this class. So far, right now, everyone is down as being for credit. Is that, you should be for audit? Liz, would you mind looking into that?
Oh, okay.
And if not, I'll check again. But it's on the 10th, which I believe is this Friday.
Do you want, Mr. Credit now?
You are down as credit, yeah.
Oh.
And I wondered about that.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Okay.
The midterm is 2 weeks away?
The midterm is 1 week away. I did have handouts for it. Who did not get one last week?
I'd like one.
It is very simple, non-threatening. The only caveat is right on a film that was shown in this class.
You gave us the format for that at the beginning of the class, correct?
I gave you a different one. This is actually shorter
Okay.
than the one that I gave you at the beginning of the class, which was that film review form. Did you need one?
Yeah.
Anybody else need a handout? 7 simple, benign questions. I'd love it if you could put your heart into it, write in complete sentences. Things I like of that.
Feel good.
Sage, how are you, sir? You're sick. Oh, no. Jim, I'm afraid they still haven't fixed. You're too good. Bonus credit for you, Jim. Bonus credit.
I don't know.
Oh, I think we actually have this huge musical intro at the beginning of this, so let's see if I can fast forward this. Lay this in sections.
Yeah, we'll go get ice if we get a break. We need to get
Should just select